Is Avowed? I have around 25 hours on this game so far, and I think at the point of this recording, I'll probably have a little bit more. But the question that everyone is asking and waiting for is Avowed ass? No, it's not ass. Now, before you get your pitchforks, before you start trying to kill me inside of the comments, you need to understand something. I said the game isn't ass. I don't think it's as bad as people are saying it is. I think Avowed really has not really had a fighting chance to stand on its own 2 feet, because the thing about Avowed is that people are very much just kind of having disingenuous arguments when it comes to what Avowed is. A lot of these videos where people are comparing it to either Skyrim or Oblivion or Morrowind or whatever game that's very similar to it in style, they're comparing it to that, not understanding that Avowed isn't an open world sandbox like these other games are. Those are two extremely separate labels. And when those labels actually come out, those are two extremely separate types of games. And I think people need to understand that Avowed doesn't have a lot of the stuff inside of the games that they're comparing inside of these videos for 2 main reasons. First of all, it literally doesn't need to, which I will get into later on. But on second, they never said they were going to have it in the first place. As a matter of fact, some of the stuff that people are saying inside of these comparison videos, oh shit. In some of these comparison videos, they're comparing certain aspects about Skyrim versus like Avowed, for example, that Oblivion stated before the game came out was not going to be inside of this game. And I think a lot of people are just making disingenuous arguments specifically because they think it's supposed to be like this Skyrim clone, when in reality, Obsidian has stated over and over and over before the release of Avowed, this game is nothing like Skyrim. This game is nothing like the Elder Scrolls series in general. It's supposed to be more similar to their low-key-esque type of outer world style of gameplay. That's what they said, like, from the very get-go. They really wanted to reiterate that over and over and over, but for some reason, despite them having to state that, they still are getting a large majority of their fan base, or non-fan bases at this point, because the majority of the people that are saying this probably haven't played the game, but you still have the majority of the gamer base that haven't played this game trying to compare it to those games. So like I said, it's one of those instances where you're trying to judge a fish for its ability to climb a tree. When you literally know that that's not what it's going to succeed at, it's rather disingenuous to grade it outside of the medium that is most likely to show success. And on top of all of that, I do think that people need to understand, when you're advocating for something to be universally similar to any other predecessors that was really good, aka you want every game to be Skyrim, you want every game to be Red Dead, you want every game to be XYZ and have similar features, it's very damaging to gaming culture to advocate for something that's similar. We are basically shooting ourselves in the foot here. You guys are advocating for something that does not push the boundaries. Now, does Avowed push the boundaries as far as like gameplay loop and actual functionality within video games? No, but I do think it does push the boundaries for how games are made and how we can actually go forward within the monetary value and ways to solve how expensive video game culture is now. But if we're constantly advocating for every game to be the next Skyrim with the same exact features, every single game to be as in-depth as Red Dead, guess what? We are literally shooting ourselves in the foot by begging for games that do not push boundaries in different ways. If we're asking for a universal design, guess what? We're not going to get innovation outside of said universal design if we constantly demean everything that goes outside of that box. I do think that we as gamers need to have a harsh discussion coming soon, because people love to advocate for that. They want less layoffs within the industry. They want games costing less, and they want games to overall just be lower amounts quantity-wise. Avowed, when it comes to that, is actually insanely good. You want to know why? There's a lot of things inside of these comparison videos where it's like the arrows don't come down from the sky, or the arrows don't go into the tree. There's no fish inside of the water. Hey, you can't break things. You can't hunt animals. You need to understand that some of these decisions are actually really good when it comes to lowering cost. You want to know why? Because a lot of these things don't matter. If it wasn't for these videos comparing these two games where it's you can't break a pot that's on a table or you can't swim and find a fish swimming, most people would not have noticed it inside of the game, because that's not the game it's trying to be. As a matter of fact, it's doing the exact opposite for an intentional reason. It's lowering the costs. If the game has no necessity for you to be able to kill animals inside of the game, why make extra funding and extra spending to be able to make the game do that? An ARPG doesn't have a lot of the stuff that they're trying to compare to other games. As a matter of fact, look at the game like The Witcher, for example. I can bring out all of my books that I have from The Witcher that I bought in high school. I can bring out my medallion. I can bring out my sword. I'm a big Witcher fan. With that being said, let's use The Witcher 3, for example, because if we're going to keep constantly comparing Skyrim to Avowed, guess what? We have to keep the same energy for every single other ARPG. The Witcher 3, despite how amazing it is, does not have Skyrim Skyrim's level of physics within the game. As a matter of fact, a lot of the stuff inside of these comparison videos, The Witcher doesn't have either. Not every single NPC within The Witcher has a day-night cycle. You can't break everything on a table. You can't move and interact with things inside of the universe. You can't kill every single NPC inside of the game, and so on and so on. You want to know why? Because it's an action RPG. It's held to a different set of standards. Once again, we are judging and grading a fish on its ability to climb a tree. And most importantly, I think most people, when you ask them which game is more developed, The Witcher or Skyrim, most people are going to say The Witcher. People need to understand that both The Witcher and Avowed are both ARPGs. Thus, they must be graded differently. Now, am I saying that Avowed is better than The Witcher? No, not by a long shot. But that's not the point here, because what I'm doing is grading within the medium that it's set in. But you can't degrade one game for not having any of the aspects and call another game one of the best games of all time for also not having the same exact things. We as gamers need to stop acting like just because a game does something really well, just because another game doesn't have it, all of a sudden it makes it worse. They're not even trying to do the same thing. And essentially what's going on right here is that we're seeing like a very clear-cut example of the red car theory. And essentially the red car theory goes a little something like this. When you think of how many red cars you've seen on the road when you were driving prior to watching this video, you would probably think, yeah, I haven't seen a lot of red cars. You want to know why? Because red cars are rare. Then you go and you drive and you go, I'm going to see if I can count how many red cars I can see. And then once you count, you see 1 red car, 2, 3, 4, 5. And by the time you stop at your next destination, all of a sudden you've seen 15 red cars. And all of a sudden you see, wait a minute, red cars aren't rare at all. I'm just not looking for them. The red car theory is literally just a metaphor that essentially describes how the second you start wanting to notice something, you will find more things that are like it. And people, when you go into a game and you're intentionally trying to find things that are negative, guess what? You are going to find things that are negative. And one of the most important things about the red car theory is that when you go onto that road and you are looking for red cars, guess what? You are going to start twisting your perception of reality to find more red cars. You'll find a burgundy car coming around. You'll be like, well, that kind of has a little bit of orange inside of it, but I'll still consider that red. You might see a pink car that has a little bit of a tint in the red inside of it, and you'll be like, yeah, that kind of has red. You'll see a car that has red flags on the side, red paints and little trails on it. And you'll go, well, technically that's red. And essentially what you'll do is you start bending the rules to find more red cars. It's the same exact thing for Avowed. People are bending the rules to be able to shit on Avowed. And what's so upsetting is that I don't even necessarily think this game is perfect. As a matter of fact, I have a lot of problems with this game. I think this game is like a B minus. But it's so difficult to talk about games that are B's and B minuses because they are so negatively bogged down by people who are using this red car theory, who are constantly going negative, 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 negative. Like, for example, one of the biggest things that I will say inside of this game, guess what? I didn't expect the NPCs to have day-night cycle, but the NPCs at the very least should not be stagnant, just motionless people within a city. Code them to at least walk around. It doesn't feel dead. It just feels a little emptier when it comes inside of the cities. And to be fair, I do think that they're trying to do this to save money on the game production. They feel a little more barren than I feel like they should be. They're not dead by any means. It's just they literally physically are empty. Like, look at this. This is supposed to be the high town, I'm pretty sure, and which means that when I hear high town, I'm expecting a lot of people to be here. You don't have to code full-on day-night cycles like a game like Baldur's Gate 3 or Red Dead Redemption 2 or anything along those lines, but you need to understand that just because it isn't a sandbox doesn't mean that the NPCs probably shouldn't move. Code them to move at least a little bit. And in my opinion, that'll skyrocket the entire, evolution of the game. And in some cases, there's just literally glitches inside of the game. For example, this is me recording my experience trying to close the game for the first time, but it just wasn't closing properly. And my CPU usage was going through the roof. Also, I have to state this. This is the second time this has happened. I'm not going to show my entire fucking task manager because you guys are weird, but this is the second time where I've loaded up Avowed, closed Avowed, and the game still goes on in the background. I can't reopen it. So just know that if you are planning on playing this game and you close this game, it's still running in the background. Please, you have to force close it. I don't know why it's doing that. I have no idea. People are saying this. I mean, like, all right, never mind. I'll take that point away. Fuck. I can't talk about that because either people will clump it in with the fact that I'm hating on the game or people will think that I love the game. There's no in between. It also works in reverse as well, where I can't talk about the positives this game has to offer because it's so busy being bogged down, people talking about nonsensical things that really don't matter inside of the game. For example, the world is beautiful. The exploration is absolutely insane in this game. Absolutely amazing. You have seamless quests where when you're walking down the street and you do see a stagnant NPC and they are having to have a conversation that sounds like it could be an interesting quest, guess what? There's a very good chance that it probably is an interesting quest. Like I said, it doesn't mean dead because I'm just walking naturally and I can literally just hear people talking. And if I can hear them talking and it sounds like a quest, I can guarantee you if I talk to these people right now, I'm going to be able to get a quest from them. I haven't played this yet, but if I go up to these women, this woman right here and this guy right here, I'll probably be able to get a quest. On top of the fact that there are so many hidden areas inside of the game that you, the viewer, and you, the player, need to be able to find out on your own. So the biggest thing that everyone is kind of talking about when it comes to this game is it worth $70? And that is the most difficult question to answer, I think, in my opinion. And I personally enjoyed this game. The reason why it's difficult to answer is because whether or not something is worth it to you versus me is completely subjective. I have no idea what's good for you and what's good for me. Me personally, I just enjoy video games. And most importantly, I have no problem if said video games are like a B. They don't push the standard of video games too much, but they are just overall good games. That's kind of what Avowed is. But on top of that, I can't tell you whether or not you're going to enjoy Avowed. You're just going to have to play it to be able to see that. If we're talking about literally worth your time and we're following this $1 per hour rule, I will say that, yeah, it's worth it. You're finding on the internet people basically saying that this game takes around 16 hours to complete. And that's just a flat out lie. It really does not take 16 hours to complete. Yeah, maybe if you're rushing through and you do literally nothing else and you play just the main mission. But even then, that's not true. In my personal experience and what I found on the internet, it takes around 3 days to complete this game while exploring. So 3 days averaged out to hours is 72. Is that 72 hours? Let me double check. It is 72 hours. Good. All right. So, and it was more like 3.5 days at that point. So like 72 hours up. So if we are going off this method of $1 per hour, you're going to get more than enough content inside of this game. Is it enjoyable for you? Is it worth it to be played? Am I going to have fun playing the game? Me personally, I would say yeah, but a lot of people out there might not agree. For example, I loved Kingdom Come Deliverance 2's combat, but guess what? When I go on the internet, I can find a whole community of people that say that combat is absolutely abysmal and boring. That's their opinion. They don't think this game is worth it. It's the same exact thing for Avowed. And I think that we need to stop letting the overall sardine mass of people speaking to prevent people from making their own educated guesses and their educated judgments on whether or not they're going to like a game. That's my take on Avowed. Is it ass? Not really. Will it be ass to you? That's a completely different question. And that's only a question that you can answer yourself. But either way, I am Father Pucci, your residential brown skin nerd of the internet, and that is Avowed. And I'll talk to y'all later. Peace.